On to Sri Lanka now, which is facing a financial emergency. The island country is running out of food and basic supplies. The currency is plunging. Forex reserves are depleting. In the past few days, the Sri Lankan rupee has soared to over 200 against the dollar. On Monday, it was trading at around 226 to 233 to the US dollar. Sri Lanka has no spot market to establish the price. The exchange rates are decided over the counter by banks. Earlier, bank chiefs were requested by the authorities to bring the rupee to near 200 levels. The banks have now intervened, quoting it at 197 to 203 to the US dollar. Currently, almost every bank in Sri Lanka is facing an acute shortage of foreign currencies. The government has put a ceiling on the money that can be sent overseas. The surge in infections and lockdown measures made matters worse. Sri Lanka's foreign reserves are depleting at an alarming rate. The inflow is a trickle as compared to the outflow of cash. While the Sri Lankan rupee has already lost 7.5% against the dollar, importers are worried that price controls will further discourage imports. With a population of around 22 million, Sri Lanka is heavily dependent on imports. Most food products and essentials are imported from neighboring countries, including India. So for importing food and other commodities, Sri Lanka needs foreign currency reserves to pay for them. And one of the country's sources of earning is its tourism sector, which accounts for over 10% of the country's GDP. But the COVID-19 crisis heavily impacted the tourism sector. Tourist arrivals plummeted in 2020 due to the curbs on travel, causing the Sri Lankan economy to shrink by as much as 3.6%. Earlier this week, the President, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, declared a state of emergency, allowing to dictate retail prices for essential food items and seize stocks from the country's traders. The emergency regulation was passed in the parliament, with 132 voting in favor of it and 51 votes against it. Meanwhile, importers remain worried that the regulation could lead to a supply crisis, while opposition parties say that the move endangers the country, with parties accusing the president of authoritarianism.
Sri Lanka's exchange rate, which has been on a drastic downward trend, today saw something quite unusual. For the first time, probably perhaps in months, the Sri Lankan rupee appreciated unusually by more than 10% overnight. Now, this, according to a lot of banks here in Sri Lanka, was purely based on a policy decision that has been issued by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. However, banks also note that it is nearly impossible to give the dollar at this rate, or rather to buy it at the rate that has been stated by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.